It's just pure immersion. I've always wanted to be a fighter pilot. 90% of guys here want to be a fighter pilot. You will see guys moving about as they move their head. It's just immersion.
For me, when I was younger, I always wanted to fly planes, and it's just something that's never realistically going to happen. So this is as close as you can get to flying something real, having that excitement of racing through a building, a field, wherever you are. It's like playing a video game, but you're actually in the pilot seat.
One of the things with me is I struggle sometimes to understand why am I doing this live than just playing it on a computer, because it's essentially the same thing, and probably the major difference between that is I can record this on my GoPro and strap my GoPro and go home and watch me flying, do you know what I mean, watch me racing and knowing that like physically that was there. And also the thing is the location aspect of it as well. You know, you can come to an area and you can say, right, we're going to race in here and we'll race about here. You look at some of the major races that happen in salt mines, you know, in Dubai when it was a purpose-built course. Yeah, you can do that in a simulator, but you can't have all your senses running in a simulator like you can in real life. I'm definitely not a serious racer. I'm not serious at anything. I enjoy racing, enjoy pushing myself. The great thing with flying with Kieran and Fraser, probably the 1 and 2 best pilots in Scotland at the moment, is I push myself, and it pushes me to go harder. If I have a bad day racing, I'll go, I just want to do freestyle and fly around trees and just do kind of aerial yoga, as we call it. But if I watch YouTube, or if we come in here, I'm like, all right, I want to go fast and technical and none of this flying around trees nonsense. It can be a bit trippy sometimes because you space out and you feel as if you're watching somebody rather than controlling it.
It's weird, sometimes you like forget that you're sitting in a chair in the middle of a field flying this drone about. It's almost like an outer body experience. That's the only way to describe it. Sometimes you fly past yourself and you're like, oh, who was that? And then you're like, oh, it was me, you know. Also, it's like you're flying dead fast and you get like the adrenaline buzz as if you were like actually like in a car or something driving. Yeah, sometimes you end up shaking and stuff like that when you're flying because it's such a buzz. I'm normally knackered because I've been concentrating so hard on flying. I flew 3D helis for about 8 years before I started getting into the racing drones, and then I seen these coming along and I had a wee shot of the goggles and I thought this is pretty cool. I quite fancy getting into this, and then just get into it from there. And it's a different, you see the world from a different perspective, you know, when you're up high and you've got the goggles on, it's like being a bird or something like that. It's pretty cool.
We found is one of our pilots who started off not so confident actually put in a lot of stick time on a simulator. So you get these, just practically a video game where you use your actual controller that you fly with. And he put in a lot of stick time on this, and suddenly he comes out racing and he's absolutely flying around the track now. And I think that hand-eye coordination, it just comes naturally when you practice it. It's just all about practice. So it's like driving a car after a while. You don't think about changing gears or pressing the brake or pressing the accelerator. You just think, I need to go faster, I need to go slower, I need to turn this corner.
When I first came into it, I was struggling to fly about, and just I would say in the last 6 months I've really progressed. I've got faster and faster because we did quite a lot of racing. In the Scottish Nationals, I managed to come first in every one of the heats, and then in the final I had a motor failure on the start line which caused me to crash out, so I ended up becoming fourth. So I'm fourth in Scotland. Then me and Kieran went through to the European Nationals in Ibiza.
I've just always enjoyed flying, and these things are cheaper to crash than anything else and safer. As I'm racing, it feels all slow to me, but see if you're like looking, I say line of sight with your eyes, it looks as if it's just darting past, and you think, how can they control that? But as I'm flying, it's kind of slow. Imagine if you're sitting on top of the quad with a set of controls. That's what you're doing. But you're not. You're sitting in a chair with a set of goggles on your head, looking amazing.
I know. I did go through it, honestly. No, you didn't. You went straight on. No! Daisy, you're talking shit because I've got it.
I was right behind you.
No, I'm
You're pushing these quads quite fast, 80, 100 miles an hour plus, and you're flying quite tight spaces. Like the gates can be a metre by 2 metres, so you've not got much of a window. All you break is props, these propellers. That's about the only thing you will break, and if it's a really hard crash, you might break a motor. But nowadays they're getting sort of the design of these sort of racing quads, the pods are getting pretty durable.
I'm known as the prop nuts engineer. When I started out, I didn't know how to solder, I didn't know anything about programming, electronics, really didn't know that much. But one thing I was good at was just building things and working with my hands. So I think that's the main skill set, is being able to pick up something, figure out how it works, because you'll inevitably break it, and then figure out how to fix it. As part of this sport, there's a lot of innovation going on. So a lot of people designing their own kit, a lot of people designing 3D printing is actually quite a big part of this sport. A lot of people prototype their own bits. So, I mean, I've produced just various printed out bits that we use.
I don't really sort of go for much of the 3D printed stuff. I just sort of use, I normally fly with white propellers. That's how everybody knows me in the group. I've always got white propellers in my quad, but that's about the only thing that you'd notice me out of all the rest of them. Everybody sort of buys, there's all different frames you can buy. So you start off with a frame and then you put your own motors on it and your own speed controllers, and you can add like fancy bits like different coloured canopies and stuff like that. So everybody just sort of buys different bits and bobs and builds them up. You know, there's not many people buy ready to fly ones and race them. It's all like custom build stuff. I just sort of like the racing thing. I used to kind of like building them, but after crashing so many times and repairing them, I can't even be bothered with building them now. But sometimes you've got to build it if you want to race. But I'm just more into the racing and the freestyle sort of side of things. I quite like doing that, putting a GoPro on and like flying around trees and keeping it all smooth and stuff like that.
The most non-technical explanation ever. So basically the quadcopter is 50% battery, 50% electronics. Inside here we've got a lot of electronics, the video, the camera, the video transmitter, the camera, but the three most important things are probably the motors, the ESCs, and then within it the actual flight computer itself. So these are brushless motors, and these speed controllers basically take the signal from the flight computer and translate that into a speed, an RPM, which these motors go at. The flight computer itself is really what makes it fly, and it's really important because the flight computer is taking what we want the quadcopter to do and translating that to how that moves in space. If you didn't have a flight computer, it'd be like trying to fly a modern day fighter jet with basically string and wires. It's not going to happen, it's just going to fall out of the sky. So for example, if you want to go straight up and you push up on your throttle, the flight computer will tell all four motors to go at the same speed up. If you want to go forward and you push forward, then that knows to put these two back motors at a faster speed than the front motors. And then when you combine all that into mixing and doing all the different degrees of axis of motion, then this flight computer is doing it, and that's got a gyro within it, which is telling it where it is in space. What we're doing with this is telling it where to sit in the air. So if I was to give this to you, you would crash it within a second, and that's no offense to you. But the reason being is it's non-intuitive. So you're constantly, it's equivalent to balancing something on your chin or your head or your hand. You constantly have to move it about to where it is in its position relative. Whereas with the Phantom, it's more like putting up a set of ladders. You sit it, you want it to go left, you move it left. Where what we're trying to do is balance like a snooker cue at the end of our hand, move it left, we need to do all of this kind of stuff.
My advice to anyone looking to get into it is not to let the complexity put you off.
Anybody can solder, be taught to solder. And you know what, if it's not your thing and you don't want to do that, then you can buy ready to fly stuff, and that's fine, and some people enjoy that, or get other people to build it. The only sucky thing about that is if you break it, then you don't know how to fix it. And that can be a wee bit expensive.
The prop nuts guys who are flying with today, I met them online, just asking questions about what should I buy, this motor or that motor, what battery should I use, that kind of thing. And then eventually people got more and more friendly actually, and people were thinking, right, well, if you're out any time, come fly with us. And then that's how we've kind of formed. It's a big online presence and a big online community out there.
This is one of the hobbies where you can be a complete introvert or an extrovert and be accepted within a group. If you just fly yourself, then you'll tear your hair out at problems you've got or things or issues you have, or if you break a bit of gear, you need to order it. If you're social and you meet people, then you learn new things very quickly.
What it's going to be like in 100 years, it moves so fast. Like, see if you looked at this a year ago, it was nowhere near the sort of spec of stuff we've got now. It was still a sort of hobbyist sort of fly in the park sort of thing, but now it's in the space of 6 months it's kind of really fired on.
I think it's going to get really big. I mean, it's already getting more and more popular, and it's more and more people are getting into it. And you start to see like shops like Maplin and stuff like that selling drones, and like people will buy them and they'll get the camera ship and they'll get bored of flying that, and then they'll see the racing drones, and then they'll get into the racing drone side of things. You see a lot of people doing that anyway, going from like the Phantoms and stuff like that into the racing drones.
I think it's going to get bigger. I don't know, last year it was like an exponential kind of growth within it. I think it's maybe going to plateau a bit this year until people understand what they're going to do with it. The biggest inhibitor at the moment we have is social acceptance, much like skateboarding, for example, in the 80s, which you'll hear a lot of people, running parallels to in that. What we will say is we'll always maintain safe flying, but we need more places to fly. So I would lobby to things like councils to give safe drone places, for example, the same way how we've got skate parks now where kids can go and it can be in a controlled environment. And what it means is if somebody's in a park annoying a dog walker, for example, and we don't do that, we stop, we land, we let the dog walkers go. But if there's a safe spot, then that will increase the sport. A lot of people have got a lot of social anxiety about flying in areas where they're perfectly legal to fly. But I think that will grow the sport more.
If somebody comes along and says, "Is that a drone you're flying?" I go, "Yeah, do you want to see it?" Stick the goggles in their face. As soon as they put the goggles in the face and they realise that it's not something that you could really see far, they become sort of less sort of aggressive and more sort of accepting that these things are just, I don't use the word toy, but they're hobbyist sort of grade stuff. They're not meant for spying people. That's what I'm trying to get at. And you couldn't really spy on somebody. If you hovered in front of a window, you'd see the sky, and plus they make a racket. So
it's completely polarised. So you've got that's really cool, and we will always have a spare pair of goggles or a screen and let somebody look at that, that's amazing, how do you get into that? And in fact, there's 2 or 3 guys flying here right today who got into it by that. We've seen somebody in a park had a shot, that's amazing, I'm going to get into that, in a game with the social side. And then there's the other side where we're just bad people doing bad things, even though we've all got insurance, we're all socially, and we're being nice about it. However, just on a side note, if it's a quadcopter, that is basically the bad side of it. If it's a plane, everybody loves planes, so we fly planes as well. And that's the polarising. This is a drone, it's bad, it's evil, but in reality it's not. It's just got 4 blades rather than 1.